7, and Whitney's going to talk on nutrition, which is always a hot topic. But I have just a couple of announcements for you. One is, you know that sign outside the front door right there that says, if you have these symptoms of COVID, go back home? That has been happening all along. That's not really changed. I just didn't feel at this point that I needed to put it on the update, but it's asked someone, a couple people have asked me what the rules are. Well, the rules, we're following the same rules we've always followed. We've always followed the rules, and that goes without saying, and I apologize. I don't think I should have to say this, but if you have symptoms, stay home. Do I need to say anything more about that? I think it's pretty clear. But I nonetheless have had that inquiry. Next announcement, and I have 3. That was one of 3. Princess Steps virtual, Princess Steps 5K, 10K is live. So we've had 3 sign-ups so far. I'm one of them. So I encourage you to do that. It's free. It's open to the public. Your family can do it. And so it's really kind of fun, and I'll talk more about that as time goes on. Third announcement, get ready. It's gonna rain! No, not tonight. Maybe tomorrow night. There's a cold front coming in. Cut to the chase. It is gonna rain this weekend. We cleaned our gutters, yay. Don't be afraid. You're not gonna melt. You're not gonna melt. You're not gonna melt. I promise. I promise. But you might need to wear a hat or a lightweight jacket or longer tights, something to keep you a little warmer. Okay, so if you need help with that, have any questions, don't hesitate to come let me know. You still get your 10% Princess Steps discount. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Whitney. She's got so much awesome experience and talk about passion to help you know all the right things to do that are down to earth that you can use today. Okay? All right. So, Whitney Lundy on nutrition. Yay.
Okay. So, I always use notes. I have a lot that I want to say, and I have a terrible memory. So, okay. So, you know, as a society, we really kind of focus all of our nutrition talk on weight loss. Right? That's always the lens through which we're hearing this. So it's like good foods, bad foods, calories, macros, meal timing, fasting. Suddenly carrots are bad, but meal replacement shakes are good, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And the way in which we approach food is not working in our favor at all. Okay? And I do understand the allure of dieting that most people are drawn to. I do get it. But truly, the only people who are benefiting from the diets is the $71 billion diet industry. $71 billion. And they are banking on the diet that they sold you failing. Because if it were successful, you wouldn't be a repeat customer. Okay? So here's the deal. We all deserve to take up space. However much space that is, we deserve to take up space. And you have the right to not be restricting yourself or food ruling yourself into a body that you were simply never designed to exist in. So I'm not going to talk about weight loss, but instead I am going to give you some tips on how you can begin to feed yourself in a more sustainable, calm, healthy manner. Okay? So first, why don't diets work for most of us? And this is because of something we call set point theory. Okay? So at birth, for each of us, we are already programmed with a weight range that we are going to land at as adults. Okay? We have this range, it's already programmed, we refer to that as your set point weight range. Okay? Not every body has the same set point weight range. Okay? So anytime we then enter into restriction, we see this with dieting a lot, right? anytime we enter into restriction, survival brain gets really panicked, okay? It sees this as a threat to survival. And so what happens while we're restricting ourselves is the brain actually recalibrates that set point higher, and we actually see metabolic shifts within the body as the body now tries to reach this higher, perceived safer weight range. And then we see it as we have failed the diet, right? But survival brain is back there going, oh, crisis averted. But we feel like failures, and so we look for the next diet, right? And this causes us to do this thing called weight cycling, right? Up, down, up a little bit more, down, up a little bit more. And this weight cycling actually has its own associated health risks, okay? Like type 2 diabetes, lipid disorders, coronary artery disease. And in postmenopausal women specifically, this weight cycling increases risk of sudden cardiac death. And that's even in normal weight women, okay? So that's why we don't want people dieting. So what does sustainable, healthy eating actually look like? It is far simpler than any diet is going to be selling to you, okay? We want you to emphasize water, fruits and vegetables, healthy fats. This is going to be like nuts, seeds, tofu, fatty fish, what else did I put on here? Avocado oil, olive oil, those are our healthy fats. Okay? We want you to emphasize lean proteins and plant-based proteins, and we want you to emphasize complex carbohydrates. Okay? What do we want you to limit? We want you to limit fast food and restaurant food, refined grains and other processed foods, fatty animal products, the processed meat products, sugar-sweetened beverages, and alcohol. Those are the basics of nutrition. We really want you to emphasize all of those gorgeous whole foods and water, and we're going to do our best to limit the rest. Okay? That's the basics. Why on earth am I up here talking about complex carbohydrates when right now they seem to be enemy number one? It's because we actually need them. Okay? So I'm going to take a minute here and I'm going to make a case for all three of our macronutrients. Okay? So we need fat, we need protein, and we need carbohydrate. And we actually need them in a much tighter ratio than any fad diet is going to be selling. Okay? Anybody in here actually remember like the war on fat back in the 90s? Right? It was like the worst thing you could be doing was eating something that had fat in it. Everything was like reduced fat, light, fat-free. Anybody remember those Olean potato chips? Right? Where we took this like real misinformation about how bad fat was to the point that people were consuming a potato chip, for anybody who's in here who's too young, consuming a potato chip that caused anal leakage. We're getting to that point with carbohydrates, okay? So here we are, we've swung to the other end of the spectrum. So, why on earth do we actually need carbohydrates? It is your body's preferred fuel source. You are literally built to run on glucose, and the most efficient way for your body to access glucose is through our carbohydrates, okay? If we allow the body to use carbohydrates as our fuel source, then it is going to free up the protein and the fat in our food to be used for a variety of essential functions that carbohydrates cannot do. Okay? Carbohydrates also contain fiber, and we can only get fiber from our carbohydrates. Okay? Fiber is critical for long-term health. Okay? Fiber, it actually minimizes blood sugar spikes. It helps to protect against insulin resistance. It reduces the inflammatory response within the body. It lowers cholesterol, and it decreases your risk of heart disease. This is important stuff, okay? We really do want people eating complex carbohydrates. proteins also serve essential functions. Can they be used for fuel? Sure. But like I said, if you eat something that has protein in it and we have not consumed carbohydrate, okay, your body's just going to go ahead and break down the protein for fuel. Now that protein is not available for these essential functions I'm about to read. Okay? So when we consume a protein, it breaks down into these component amino acids, okay? And these get shuttled off to do a variety of things within the body. They're used in tissue maintenance and repair, hormone regulation, storage and transport of various molecules, and in antibody formation. Okay? And these antibodies work in conjunction with other immune system cells. Kind of relevant, right? Fats. These are also critical to your health. When we consume a fat, it breaks down, it looks kind of like an E, okay? We've got this glycerol backbone, and coming off of it, we have these 3 fatty acids. So it really does kind of look like an E. And that glycerol backbone, it gets cleaved and it goes away. But these fatty acids, they get shuttled off to various parts of the body, and they're used in a bunch of things, like they're a vital part of cell membranes, they're used in organ insulation, vitamin absorption, they help to regulate the production of our sex hormones. Unsaturated fatty acids help to stabilize cholesterol levels, and they're used in things like the central nervous system, blood clotting, and controlling inflammation. So we need carbohydrate, we need fat, and we need protein, and in a pretty tight ratio, okay? I do want to talk for just a sec about fruits and vegetables, because I think we're all a little bit confused on why we advocate for people to eat fruits and vegetables. Fruits and veggies have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, okay? So they help to prevent chronic disease, they help to mitigate the damage from chronic disease, and that actually improves the quality of life and length of life. We don't advocate for fruits and vegetables as a weight loss hack. We really don't. If you are doing something with the purpose of losing weight, you are going to become resentful of that behavior when you don't lose weight, right? We want you eating fruits and vegetables because they truly benefit the lifespan, not because they get you skinny. I'm going to talk about just a few of what I think are the common pitfalls to sustainable healthy eating. So the first one is waiting as long as possible before eating or adhering to a strict meal schedule. When we do this, survival brain gets panicky, okay? Food is essential to survival. So when we withhold, the brain is going to put more and more attention on that food until that survival need is met, okay? Couple this with emotional exhaustion and stress, we're far more likely to overeat once we finally do sit down to eat, okay? You want to come to as many meals and snacks as possible in a nice, calm mindset. So be willing to check in with your hunger throughout the day and honor that hunger by getting some food truly throughout the day. The second one is food seeking without a clear purpose. I think most of us do this. This is when, right, we find ourselves like in the pantry or we're opening the fridge for kind of like the 3rd time, not really seeing what we're looking for, okay? When you notice this happening, go ahead and take a moment to pause and do a quick check-in, okay? Are you actually hungry? Are you bored? Are you really seeking sensory engagement of some kind? Are you unsettled? If you are hungry, please, 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 get yourself some food. But when you do that, take the food to the table and give that food your full attention. Don't take it to the couch and sit in front of the TV, okay? Because your food deserves your attention. Now, let's say you're seeking sensory engagement, or you're bored, or you're unsettled. Try brushing your teeth, getting yourself some ice water, and then see if you can find something that better meets your need. Yeah? Third one is setting unrealistic expectations around food. This is probably my favorite tip. Lower your expectations, okay? So often when we decide to start a new fitness routine, we will place such high expectations on ourselves and we print out these insane workout schedules, right? And then we're really too overwhelmed to even begin, right? So we've kind of failed before we've even started. Okay? However, let's say instead you decide, okay, I'm gonna go for a 15-minute walk half the week. All of a sudden this is far more achievable. You're more likely to try, which means you're already more likely to succeed at this. And when you do succeed, you actually feel good about yourself. And when we feel good about ourselves, we are actually motivated then to set a new goal. Okay? So what happens is by actually lowering our expectations, we can do this thing we call spiraling up. Okay? Same thing goes with food. If you decide that you are going to eat 10 servings of vegetables per day and you're only going to have your favorite treat every 3 months, you're going to fail. I promise you, you will fail. But if instead you go, you know what, I'm going to start by saying I'm going to increase my water intake by 12 ounces a day. Okay. Or maybe you've decided we've been doing too much takeout, so next week I'm going to cook 1 extra meal at home. Far more attainable, and you're much more likely to succeed. And once that feels like a consistent habit, then go ahead and set a new small goal. Okay, so it is this concept of spiraling up. Please lower your expectations, please. The fourth one is adhering to food rules. There are so many food rules, and when we are adhering to other people's food rules, then we're completely ignoring the needs of our own body and mind. Okay? And when we are adhering to somebody else's rules, then we're constantly comparing ourselves and we're trying to decide, are we succeeding? Are we failing? And trying to decide what that means about us as a person. And food should never, ever, ever be a character assessment, ever. Okay? Every single person has unique needs. And so we really don't want people trying to follow a third party's rules. Okay? One other thing about this. The more emotional energy we invest into a particular food or eating behavior, the more likely we are to overconsume. This is because we do not like to experience discomfort, right? We as a species are experts at avoidance. We're so good at it. Now, emotional eating is a comfort-seeking behavior, and it is a normal comfort-seeking behavior. Turning to food is a normal comfort-seeking behavior. But as soon as we begin to place guilt and shame and other negative emotions into this, what are we doing? We're increasing the distress that we're experiencing, right? Because that doesn't feel good. And all that does is it drags us further into that food-seeking behavior. And before we know it, we're like these panicked little hamsters on a wheel and we can't get off. So instead, give yourself some grace around turning to food as a comfort. Truly think about how you would treat a friend, a loved one, if they came to you and said, I'm really stressed that I went and did this particular thing, right? We're going to give them a lot of grace around that and be like, hey, it's truly okay. So that's kind of how we want people viewing this idea of comfort eating, particularly during COVID. Right? And the last thing is eating in front of screens. TV screens, computer screens, phone screens. Put away all of the screens. Turn them off. Give your food your full attention. Okay? If the silence is unnerving, go ahead and put on some background music. Okay? And if sitting there giving your food your full attention is uncomfortable for some reason, that's truly okay. Like, that's actually really common. go ahead and actually sit with that and acknowledge it. Give a little time to see if you can kind of tease out why that is an uncomfortable experience for you. Okay? But when we sit down to a meal, we want you to put your attention on your plate. We want you paying attention to the colors, the scents, the textures, the mouthfeel, the flavors of your food. Okay? Because our brain really wants multi-sensory engagement for you to reach full satiety. When we have a screen in front of us, then we're asking the brain to split its attention between the food in front of us and the screen. And the screen is going to win. Okay? That's where the brain is going to be focused. So then what happens is we're left with our brain just relying on our physical fullness cue, which is delayed. So we often end up overeating. The other thing that happens is, while yes, physically we feel full, the brain really missed out on that sensory experience. And so suddenly the plate's empty, you're full, and your brain goes, hey, wait a second, I wasn't done. And we find ourselves in the kitchen looking for more food despite being full. Okay? So put the screens away. Be willing to actually give your food your full attention. Okay? To wrap up, just a quick review here. Increase the variety of the foods that you are eating. This includes healthy fats, lean proteins, fruits and vegetables, yes, complex carbohydrates, water. Okay? We really want you prioritizing water, minimize those sweetened beverages, minimize the alcohol. That one makes me sad.
Me too.
Enjoy treats in moderation. And actually, because I have time, I want to talk about this one because it has come up a lot in my practice. Enjoying those treats. Someone will come to me and they are distressed about their binge behaviors, particularly around sweet foods. Okay? And I'm going to use Oreos as the example because it's probably one of the most common foods I hear. Okay. So somebody comes to me and they feel incredibly guilty about the amount of Oreos they will eat in a single sitting. Okay? And so we'll talk about it, kind of explore that a little bit, but ultimately, one of the things I end up prescribing, truly, is I say, I want you to go to the grocery store and purchase a package of Oreos. Okay? And tomorrow, at breakfast, you're going to go ahead and serve yourself an Oreo with the rest of your food. And then at snack, you're going to go ahead and you're going to have an Oreo with your snack. And at lunch, you're going to go ahead and you're going to serve yourself an Oreo. And you're going to do it again at dinner. And I want you to do it for 2 weeks. People think that I am crazy. But here's what happens. When your brain registers the Oreo on that plate with all of those different foods, what's suddenly happening is your brain begins to actually put that Oreo on the same level as all of those other foods. But more importantly, what begins to happen is, over the course of those 2 weeks, the brain actually begins to trust that those Oreos aren't going anywhere. Okay? One of the things that tends to drive that emotional eating, that overeating, is we kind of have this dialogue. What I'm doing is wrong, so starting tomorrow, I'm gonna be good. And brain is back here going, hold up, we never get another Oreo, right? And so what do? We eat all the Oreos. So by actually giving yourself this small treat in moderation, but really frequently for a little while, your brain will actually calm down around that food. Okay? So if this is something that you struggle with in the evenings, please, I am giving you all permission
I'm gonna be drinking so much.
So we kind of have like this running thing in here because I've always said,
I love it.
just eat the damn cookie, okay? But now I'm seeing myself and raising it a lot by telling you, I'm giving you all permission. If this is something you struggle with, go buy a package of your cookies and give this a try for 2 weeks. Okay? Please also eat fruits and vegetables and healthy fats and lean proteins, but this truly can work. Okay? So that's the whole thing on eating treats in moderation. Finally, be willing to take a step back, check in with yourself. Okay? Think about what foods actually appeal to you. Think about what foods feel good to you, okay? And if you're holding on to food rules right now, consider asking yourself, what purpose are they serving? And if maybe there's a kinder approach to how you feed yourself. Thank you.
New Leaf Family Nutrition. New Leaf Family Nutrition is the name of Whitney's business. And the link to her business is on this week's update.
Great.